What is the stupidest thing that is considered a crime? There was a post I saw where a woman and her daughter were letting their elderly neighbor use their house because his water had been shut off, but the authorities found out and the mom and daughter were fined like $400 and had to pay or their water would be shut off. Any law says that you can't feed or help people because of some arbitrary or hateful reason. A colleague was accused of throwing a cigarette packet from his car, and he was fined $30. He argues that he hasn't smoked in years and challenged the fine. The fine was upheld. He had samples taken from his car to prove that nobody had smoked in it, and medical examinations to prove that he didn't smoke. Fine was upheld. He sent threatening and abusive emails to council workers about the fine, and the police arrested him and took his computer. And that's how they found the CP over a spurious $30 fine. In my home state in Australia, it's illegal to chop wood that isn't on private property, so you can't chop firewood while camping. However, it's not illegal to collect/take wood that's already been chopped or fallen. So you can watch a dude get fined/arrested for chopping firewood, and then you can legally take the firewood that he chopped without any consequences. A lady in the UK has a rare genetic condition that she takes medication for. She's on a Facebook page with other sufferers. An American woman has been going on almost a year with the same medication, so since she has extra, she decides to mail it to her. The woman was really grateful, except it got intercepted and her husband got in trouble while picking up the package. This lady is going without very important medication, the same medication that was prescribed to her originally. She's now getting punished for getting it outside of a medical professional. I can see how this could be a problem for narcotics, but it just wasn't. It was a standard run-of-the-mill prescription, same dosage, just something that she couldn't afford. So technically, that would come under the possession with intent to supply or supplying a controlled drug. The lady sending it isn't authorized to do so, and the drug is controlled because it has to be prescribed by a doctor. The same law covers illegal substances, but is deliberately vague so that it can cover things like tramadol and Valium, etc. Collecting rainwater. For those wondering, the reasons for this were very old and very wrong in their assumptions about how aquifers and groundwater work before modern hydrology sciences. At this point, it's literally just superstition. In Japan, it's illegal to put ice cream in mailboxes. And I want to know, how many times did that have to happen to become a law? I mean, maybe some of you know, and you can just let us know in the comments. I was walking to class one day after parking across the street from campus. As I cross the quad, I hear a siren. I don't think anything of it at first, but as it starts getting closer, I turn around. A motorcycle cop is riding across the quad and is coming up directly towards me. I stand there dumbfounded as he pulls up next to me and gets off the bike and tells me that he was staking out the corner and that he'd measured the spot where it was legal to cross the street without using the crosswalk, and I was inside of it. Everyone watched as he pulled out his ticket book and he wrote me a citation there in the middle of the quad for jaywalking, and then rode back across to his hiding spot. That was not the last ridiculous ticket that I received while attending school there. I remember picking up a copy of the Criminal Code of Canada, flipping up to a random page, and finding a specific mention that water skiing in a manner that endangered public safety was prohibited. I really gotta wonder which maple doofus clotheslined a family and got this made into code. I was driving through a town center with my friends on the way to a bakery after school. One of my friends really liked the song Magic by B.O.B. and would soulfully sing the backup parts. I got the magic, baby. I think. Anyways, we had the windows down and the police officer on foot told me to pull over at the next opportunity. He walked over and asked for the ID of everyone in my car, and then asked why my friend was yelling at him, very rudely. After we explained that he was singing, he told us that he was just protecting us from people who would shoot at us for yelling at them in a small town in Pennsylvania. One lemonade company had to up the sugar in one of their products, because it was called Die Limo, German word for lemonade. And in order to call something lemonade in Germany, you have to have at least a certain percentage of sugar in it. German logic at its finest. Not my state, but in the state of Arizona, there is a law that I believe is still in place that criminals must call 24 hours in advance of a crime to the home or location they plan to rob to inform them of the impending crime. Failure to warn them is another 6 months added to their sentence if caught. What? If a man is committing death atop a building and jumps onto your car, you're the one they blame for his death. If he dies, you go to jail. If he's alive, you pay for his health. That makes me a little nervous, man. Is it better to start parking in the underground lot from now on, maybe? I don't know. I can legally carry a loaded handgun on my lap while driving down the road, but if my bow case in the back seat is left unzipped, I could be arrested. In Ontario, Canada, there still exists an archaic law. No person shall race or drive furiously any horse or other animal on a highway. Similarly, in Ontario, You can't go over snow on a one-horse open sleigh unless your sleigh comes equipped with not one, but two bells. There is a $5 fine for the sleigh bells one, too. Oh, I love this whole world we're living in. In Brazil, if a father fails to pay the monthly child support, the obligation falls upon the grandparents and even the uncles and aunts. A few years ago, a 75-year-old woman was imprisoned for several weeks because she was too poor to pay the child support owed by her stupid son. So, our government, in its great wisdom, arrested and put her in a cell with a bunch of criminals to teach her a lesson to stop being poor. You can't pick up certain feathers off the ground. I don't think anyone actually knows/cares about it, but you can be fined up to $15,000 if you pick up the wrong type of feather. And with our previous house came a big shed that used to house cows. We had 5 horses and some dogs. We made kennels for the dogs in the shed, only for nighttime. My mother has an extreme fear of house fires and wants animals out of the house when we weren't around or awake. And new stables for the horses outside. Long story, but this made most sense with accessing the fields. So one day we get an inspection, which is normal if you own a certain amount of animals. They told us that we were breaking the law because we made kennels in a shed that was registered as livestock housing. They told us if we want to put horses in the kennels, it's fine, but if we want to house dogs in there, we had to set up stables and put them in the stables. We ended up putting hay in the kennels, and because hay is common bedding for horses, they accepted it. I'm not even kidding. Under a recent cybercrimes law in Pakistan, you can be put in jail for texting a person who doesn't have you as a contact in their phone. In Singapore, you aren't allowed to distribute chewing gum. I was unaware of this the first time I flew into Singapore. At customs, the gentleman found a pack of gum. He glared at me and asked me what I was planning on doing with the gum. Chew it? Toronto, Canada city bylaw. You cannot drag the body of a dead horse down Yonge Street on a Sunday. Any other day, it's fine. Any other street, it's fine. It's just Yonge or Yonge, and on a Sunday. You just did me a solid. I don't have anything else planned for this Sunday, and I was just thinking about doing that, so thanks. In Hasselt, you can get fined for using a sports field for any other sport than the one that it was intended for. You're not allowed to wear a mask that covers your face, but exceptions are made for Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny. In the Netherlands, it's not allowed to lock intruders in the bathroom because that limits their freedom of movement. In Arkansas, it's legal to beat your wife, as long as it's done no more than once a week, has to take place on the courthouse steps, and with a stick no thicker than your thumb. Sleeping in your car while parked. I got abandoned in an unknown town at the end of a Christmas party, and it was dangerously cold, and I'm just wearing a daft party suit. I'm not a drinker, so I was beyond intoxicated and needed help, but was completely alone. Thank God I knew where my car was parked. So I get there. I grab my emergency supplies I keep in the boot, and I huddle up for the night. Some good Samaritan calls the cops at 5 a.m. and I get horribly mistreated. Locked for 24 hours and a court date. The cops also tried to stitch me up in the report. I always assumed that being a decent, honest guy would get me leverage if I'm ever in trouble. So the entire experience was harrowing. There's a neighborhood in Toronto, Canada where it's illegal to sell alcohol in an establishment with more than 2 arcade games. Not the whole city, just this one particular neighborhood. A pinball cafe opened in said neighborhood, bringing all sorts of retro and new pinball machines that would rotate through, opened with quite a bit of hype. First few months, they were busy, they got great reviews, but there was a holdup with the liquor license which caused them to lose money. Eventually, the license was denied because of this prohibition-era law that had never been taken off the books. Pinball cafe closed. Sad day. I believe it's still law in Orange County, California to not feed lobster to inmates more than 2 times a week. The law stems from when lobster was considered trash and a common bycatch from local ocean fishery. It seems the solution was to use them as protein in the local jails, and the prisoners revolted. I grew up in a beach town. During each summer, the population tripled with tourists. The locals and tourists would often fight once a year, and it got so severe that a person died. From then on, it became illegal to proudly display the word local on clothing, cars, etc. One guy got fined for having it tanned onto his back using sunscreen. Let us know in the comments if you got any related stories to share or any stories that we can make a video on.